Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 73 for Friday, February 23rd, 2024. My name is Justin Young. Joining me as usual are Alicia Utecht and Christina Ivey. Mario is out today. He's away at a conference and everything. So, Mario, we hope you're having a good time and enjoying yourself. Alicia, you just made a face. Do you not wish well for Mario?
I'm like, yeah, out there being an adult. Yeah. Doing good things.
He's a pop culture or a specifically like gaming conference.
Is the conference game? I thought it was a pop culture conference, but he was in the game studies.
It's the It's the Southwest Conference of the Popular Culture Association.
Yeah. There's a lot of gamers there. Like even if they don't do gaming studies, pretty much everybody there is a gamer.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a lovely conference. I think I'm gonna go back next year.
We should have printed up flyers for him and just had him distribute about the podcast.
There we go.
Yeah.
While you're out there, Mario, do publicity for us.
Do the good work, Mario.
Spread the good word at the Saluki Gamescast.
Have you heard the good word of the Saluki Gamescast?
I mean, look, we had a Bible verse the other day. Like,
I'm a nun.
We could have given him like a white bun-up shirt and black pants.
Oh, little Mormon Mario.
Oh no, that makes me think of Mormon Super Mario. Those are very different games all of a sudden.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, so Alicia and Christina, how have you been?
I finished prelims on Sunday somehow.
Congratulations.
So I am alive, and yet have I had a break? No. Because my two graduate assistantship positions, one is with the Kleinau Theater here in our department, and we have a showcase event this weekend that's the Africana Theater Lab Black as Hell showcase. Mm-hmm. And so I've been in the Kleinau doing tech and all that for their rehearsals this week for tech runs. And then my other assistantship, I'm the Vice President of Administrative Affairs for the Graduate and Professional Student Council here at SIU. And so one of my responsibilities with that is handling our end of year awards. And the deadline for the end of year awards is today at 5 p.m.
Oh.
So
that's why I got an email.
Yeah, so dealing with all the people asking questions and also doing my normal responsibilities with that, dealing with, the fee allocation board and the meeting on Tuesday night. And
honestly, it's like, just hang with me here. It's probably not the worst thing that you had a few things to do to like follow up them. Because I just remember, again, being done with prelims or our comps situation and just like crashing in the worst way. And so I think maybe having like a gradual letdown of like that endorphins and things like that, maybe good for you.
I hope so. I did not have endorphins on Sunday night. It was all, I was awake for 35 hours straight working and 22 hours before I realized that I hadn't eaten I hadn't eaten food since the night before. So it was probably one of the worst weekends of my life. I'm not going to lie. But I made it through.
Yeah.
I sobbed a lot, but we're here. I've checked in with 2 of my 3 committee members, and they don't think I'm an idiot. And I'll see the third one this afternoon, and I'm sure he also doesn't think I'm an idiot.
That's
so
good.
Getting out of my Sunday night brain self.
Who's the third one?
Craig GP.
Oh, yeah, fine.
Yeah. So I'm still exhausted. I'm still catching up on sleep, but I honestly don't expect to really get a break until maybe spring break, ?
So remember this feeling and remember like how horrible you felt getting this done. And as you go on and become a professor, think about when you are training the next PhDs, how can this be done differently so that it isn't just hell for like no reason? Because a lot of what gets done in academic programs is because, well, this is what was done to me.
Yeah.
This is how it was done with me.
For sure.
And it's not necessarily like, is that the best way to handle it? Or is there a better way that maybe, because everybody I know who goes through prelims comes out of it going, yeah, like this almost killed me. And it's like, well, is that actually useful Like, is there a easier way to test people without trying to kill them in the process?
And I will say, like, our program has the best prelims out of any, like, talking to other people at SIU, talking to my friends who are in comm studies at other universities. Like, our program has the best ones, the most practical.
Like, I have no doubt that it was anxiety inducing, especially based on the stuff you were talking about. My process was dramatically different. Like, it was, they gave me the question the day of, locked me in a room for 2 hours. Half my questions would allow notes, half would allow no notes. And I had to just write. My shortest answer was like 9 pages single spaced. So it, so like, and I'm not trying to invalidate like your or anything, but it's like this program is definitely a lot different.
Yeah, but I think some in that vein, it's important to remember, like, even for how well structured and how practical ours are. And it's hell. So like remembering that even the things that we do that are going to be helpful in the long run, going to be still being sympathetic to when you're in the middle of it, it's hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make an argument that putting people through something that is stressful can be useful because being a full-time faculty member is very stressful, right? Mm-hmm. So like preparing them and to some extent, I just sometimes have a problem with the way universities handle things and being in meetings and going, why are we doing it this way? Well, because this is the way I did it. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So like,
academic hazing.
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, right? Like some things that we do feel that way.
I definitely...
Or I should say programs do. Like, I mean, like I'm not even... Obviously, I'm not attacking comm studies, but like I'm saying that, there's always a better way to do things. Mm-hmm. And I think it's useful for people to sometimes be honest and be like, well, maybe this isn't the best way. Maybe we could do this in a way that's not going to have people's hair falling out in the process.
Mine did during my the master's process, writing my thesis. My hair did start to fall out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you hear horror stories like... And again, this does not happen in this program that I hear. I'm not going to say it's never happened. But you do hear horror stories of people breaking in graduate programs.
Yeah. Well, like, and even looking, I when I got to the end of it, I turned questions 1 and 2 in on time. I turned question 3 in 9 hours late. And I had texted Johnny, who's my advisor, and, I had sent 1 and 2 in and said to my committee, hey, I'm running into some difficulties with question 3. I'll still have it in. Mm-hmm. And by the time I turned it in my head, I was like, I'm going to fail this question, and I'm going to have to start completely over. I'm going to have to write a new question. I'm going to have to do more research. I'm going to have to defend a new question and pick another month. And then after I had slept and... The Monday morning, I was on the phone with my parents, and I was texting one of the people in our program who I knew had not passed all of her prelims on her first go. And she was like, yeah, I was in a similar boat. I saw it coming. It still hurts. But, when you get that back, partial revision is fix a few things. Full revision is try again. And I went, wait, what? I'm not starting from scratch. I'm not writing a whole new question. No. And she's like, no, that's not unless you're on like attempt 4 and your committee really doubts your ability to rewrite. And I was like, I've been hanging out with my friends in other programs too long because one of my really good friends in another program here at SIU, it was similar to you, that no notes, sit down and write for 8 hours. And when she failed, she had to start all the way over. God, no. And I was like, oh, thank God our department's not like that.
Yeah. I was one of the few people in my cohort that didn't have to have any rewrites.
Yeah. And and reframing it as rewrites helps me a lot too, because like I was an editorial assistant for a journal for 3 years, so like I know very deeply I can tell the imposter syndrome to shut up on the idea of like a revise and resubmit is just a nice way of saying no, they really want you to revise and resubmit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So glad you're through that.
Yay.
I mean, at least for
Yes.
now. And like you can take a break and not be too stressed. And you did take a break last night and went to see something at the movie theater.
Yes, so Wednesday and Thursday of this week, Fandango did a release because it had never been released in U.S. theaters before, of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete. And so the local movie theater had the subtitled version. So I went last night. I was the only person in the theater, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been if the employee was allowed to leave the front, because I got there and I was like, "Hey, can I get a ticket for Final Fantasy VII Advent Children?" And he's like, "What?" Yeah. Do you want sub or dub? And I was like, "Dude, you have the dub version? I thought it was just subtitled here." He's like, "Yeah, I should check before I actually say that." "Oh yeah, we only have the subtitle." "Okay, I know what I'm doing tomorrow night." And I was like, "It's only here Wednesday and Thursday." And he literally made a face and he was like, "I wish I could swear right now." But it was really fun. Does Advent Children make the most sense in the world? No. Do I love it anyways? Yes. And having the theater to myself, I got to like nerd out and say lines along with it. And
Of course you did.
So you Mystery
love
Science
it.
Theatered it.
Yay.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Shriek when Rufus Shinra shows up on screen, all that good stuff.
Well, that's cool. It's cool that they did the re-release of it. I guess that ties in very well with the new Final Fantasy Rebirth release and everything. So
6 days. 6 days till we know.
all right. Christina, anything interesting going on with you?
No. Well, I did some bar ministry stuff with the sisters, and yeah, have gotten to put on drag makeup a couple days this week. But other than that, no, just real busy.
Well, it is actually getting to the point where you can start to say it's that time of the semester because we're getting to midterms and everything.
I've been trying so hard not to say.
No, it's definitely that time of the semester.
Thank you.
I'm only not in that time of the semester because I'm recovering from prelims.
Fair.
So let's move on to what we've been playing. And Alicia, have you been playing anything?
I have. So I've been staying on top of Pokemon Go. OJ actually recommended an app to me that's Pokebattler Radar? Radar? I don't remember. But it's to connect with folks doing raids all over the world.
Oh.
So you can get some of, right now they're doing the Pokemon Go Sinnoh tour. So they had the 3 sub-legendaries from Sinnoh, Azelf, Uxie, and Mesprit back in raids. Mm-hmm. But each of the 3 of them are region locked. So Azelf appears in North America and South America, I think. Uxie is in Europe and Oceania, and Mesprit is in Asia, I want to say. I think that's where they all are, but obviously, I'm a little landlocked in Illinois. But I was able to get in a raid to get Mesprit with that, so that was pretty cool. Never managed to find an Uxie one, so that is a bummer, but keeping my eyes open for next time. So yeah, staying on top of that, and then I finally got to start playing Super Mario Wonder after buying it a couple weeks ago as a post-prelims present.
Yeah.
I'm not super far into it right now. I beat World 1 and then had to stop and be like, it is 11 a.m. and I'm still in my pajamas, and we record at noon. So
So you mean this morning you were doing this?
a little bit last night, mostly this morning.
Okay.
Oh, I was like, there's nothing wrong with being in your pajamas at 11 a.m. Whoa.
There is when you have to be somewhere at noon.
Okay, fair.
And you're going to be here until 8 p.m.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I can't decide if I hate the talking flowers or not, because they're kind of annoying sometimes.
So I had the same reaction, but he won me over.
Okay.
He won me over as I played more of the game.
Okay.
And he I think he becomes more more charming as the game goes along.
Okay, that's good, because right now I'm just a little bit like, it's weird to hear talking in a Mario game.
Right,
It's so bizarre.
It definitely is. It's weird to have voiced characters
Yeah.
who aren't just going, woohoo, and everything.
It's like that moment in Kirby and the Forgotten Land when you get to the lab and you start hearing an actual human voiceover and you're like, what? In my Kirby game?
In a Nintendo game, just in general, right?
True.
Like, it's kind of weird.
But I am having fun with it, and I'm really enjoying the online play and how you're able to like interact with other people, and when you die, go get revived, and that's really making it a lot of fun too. So
yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. And that game, I think if you're playing it, not constantly, it'll last you a while because there's a lot of stuff to find. Lots of hidden things in there as well.
I know there was part of me that was like, oh, I want to beat every level 100% before I move on to the next one. And then I was like, Alicia, that's just not your play style. Just play through the game and then go back and play the levels to get the things you missed.
Right. Yeah. All right. Is that it?
Yep. That's been it for me. I'm pretty busy with GPSC and Kleinow stuff too, but.
Christina, how about you?
Yeah, so it's mainly been a week of anxiety games and watching more than playing. But I've been watching, like I said last time, the new DBD character was released, or characters rather.
That's Dead by Daylight.
Yes, Dead by Daylight. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just for people listening,
Yes.
I want to make sure they know.
Dead by Daylight, not DVDs.
Like I hear every time.
Right. Maybe if I just enunciated better enough.
No, it's just my brain filling in because I don't play horror games, so I know
Fair.
nothing with acronyms
Fair.
like that.
So, like I said last time, they released a new survivor, a new killer, a new map, and all of it was original material, so stuff that came from behavior. The new survivor is a goth girl, and the entire community has gone wild. Her name is Sable, and
They know who their fans are.
exactly. And honestly, she's amazing. I love her. So I'm fan base. Her name is Sable, and she's actually friends with one of the other original characters that has been introduced.
Nice.
Like, this character disappeared, and it's her friend Michaela. And so she went looking for her, and in the process of looking for her, also disappeared. So it's like it's really cool how they've connected those two things together. The killer is probably the creepiest one that they've added, and it's called The Unknown. They did a really good job of like filling in lore, but also keeping it unknown. So like every character is usually released with some extended lore. This was from the perspective of somebody writing their thesis on urban legends. So it's like we get the lore around the lore. So we still don't know exactly what this dude is. He is, again, uncanny valley. His body is twisted in weird ways. He has this creepy pasta smile on his face. And it is so frightening. And then the map is really cool. So I've been watching.
What is the map? I mean,
so the map is, there are different places that you essentially get sent to in order to perform the trial. So
sure, but I mean, what's this new map?
Oh, gotcha. So it is the part of the city in which Sable and Michaela lived in. So it's like Greenbrier or something like that. And in particular, Michaela and Sable were big fans of a movie theater. So part of the map includes like a little bitty movie theater, which is really cool.
That's neat.
Right? And it's like on the edge of a forest. And so there's like some really cool city like aspects, and by that I mean like the movie theater and like a road and a car, and then like some forest elements. So it blends a couple of the map elements that we've seen before, but like in really cool ways.
If you go into the theater, can you go in it?
Yep.
Is there something playing on the screen?
Yep. Well, it's like it's like messed up, but yes.
Okay.
And it's really cool too, because like in one of the people that I was watching, Sable gets behind the counter and the killer like points to things in the weird way that you can do it in Dead by Daylight. So Sable goes and like points to and so they like did it like Sable was getting him popcorn or something.
That's great.
And I
want some Milk Duds.
Exactly. Well, and it's just, that's one of the things I love about this game is that you can head nod, you can point, and like what is this gesture called? I'm doing
here.
it like come here gesture.
Come hither.
Come hither gesture. I'm like doing it thinking you can see. And so and so it's just interesting the way in which people can communicate through the game, like early version iterations of the game where if you were on a hook and you like did your hands up and down on the hook, the killer was around you, and so that signified to other players to just go on about your business, and when they stop, you can go save them. Obviously, that shifted. So, like the communication within the game itself has always just been really interesting to me. But that's really creepy. The other thing, I've been watching Balatro, which is insane. I watched this one guy who was like, I'm on hour 5 of an endless run. And I was like, dude, what? Hour 5? On level like 56 has had like 1.14 like to the 56th power, I don't know.
Holy
points.
moly.
It is ridiculous. Like his deck was basically all King of Hearts that were in various degrees of elevation. It's a really cool game. It hurts my brain, but it's a cool game.
Actually playing it is less math than I think it looks like from the outside.
Yeah.
Because when you're actually playing it, I mean, you do need to think about, okay, what will actually multiply my score more? But it's a lot less of actually calculating that in your head while you're doing it.
Yes. And like I figured that out pretty quickly when I realized that some of the streamers were just like, I hope this gets me there. And the other thing that I realized, I was like, oh, I'm catching on to this better than I thought, because there was one streamer that I was watching that was basically building a pairs build, which means that all of the elevations, all the jokers that they had, like favored playing pairs as a hand, but then kept playing flushes, and I was like, my dude, like it's taking you twice as long, which means you're making half as much money. Like it was a lot, and I was like, okay, I'm catching on to this better than I thought I was. But that's real cool. And then the final one that I've been watching is one called Papers, Please.
Oh, yeah.
Have y'all seen that? I had never seen it before, and so I passed out watching Balatro, and when I woke up, this game was on, and I was like, what is this? And so I rewound it and watched the whole thing. So that was really cool. And so I saw 2 different endings with that game, but
Jacksepticeye has a pretty good run of it on YouTube, and
I like him, yeah.
Easy Speezy on YouTube and on Twitch, but I mostly watch his YouTube videos. He has a speed run of all the endings.
Oh, I need to watch that one because I've been watching.
That's such a weird idea of speed running Papers, Please.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I've been watching Ensim do it, who's mostly known for Phasmophobia, and Mortuary Assistant, which is another game I'll talk about in here sometime.
Gosh, Mortuary Assistant. I just saw the thumbnail of Jacksepticeye's playthrough and was like, nope.
That's one that I've like played, and I have done one run through and probably will not play again because it is terrifying. But anyway, so I'll check out the speed run of the endings, but I don't know, it was just really fascinating. The concept of it, I don't know, was just really cool to me.
Yeah, Papers, Please was a big game when it came out. I mean, I don't know how long it's been. No,
I think 2019 is maybe when it came out. Maybe.
Well, I think it's a little older than that because I think when I was still at my last job, that game had already come out. But yeah, it's a cool game. Like for people listening, if they've never played that game, and it's pretty cheap to pick up. Like I feel like that's a game you can get for less than $10.
Oh,
now.
it was
It must be.
2013. Yeah, so he had played it in 2019. Yeah, it's a really cool game, and there's, like I said, various endings. You can either do it completely by the book and have one ending, or
Right.
you can let people into the country. So essentially, like, yeah, it's one of those where you are someone who is kind of like border patrol, like the check station, and you are checking passports and entry of individuals, basically. It's really cool.
But like it's one of those games that has a political message to it because I mean part of the point of that game is that look how hard this actually is to do because
Yeah.
people are like, well, just don't let the terrorists in. And it's like, well, the terrorists don't wear a sign that says, "Hi, I'm a terrorist." Like, and so I mean, it's making a very. I feel like it's one of those games. Not like it was the first because games go back to the 70s and 80s doing this, but like in this sort of modern. Everything is on Steam age, where it was one of the first games to really kind of show like, hey, you can make a game and it'll break out and it'll have a political message and like people will latch on to that. And
For sure.
the fact that they're still playing and streaming this game a decade later says a lot. Absolutely.
And like, the first level is just basically you let everyone who's from this nation that you're from in, like their passports, you deny everybody else. And then, every level gets a little more complicated where you have to look at their entry tickets to make sure that the date's correct. You have to make sure their picture matches their passport. Then you get, at some point, you get a list of criminals. And so if any of them tried to come in, you have to stop. And it's just each time you let less and less people in because you have a longer list of things you have to check for. And you know, a shift, of course, it's not exactly 8 hours in real life, but it's 8 hours in the game.
Yeah.
And the more you have to check, the more time it takes for each person. So it's super fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yes.
All right. Well, I played a few different things this week. So why don't I just start with Balatro because you've already brought that up and everything. So Balatro actually fully released this week. I did purchase Balatro and started playing it. It is insanely addictive.
It is. Like even watching it. Yeah.
It's and it's one of those great games where like, we talk about it often here. It's a podcast game. You can be watching or listening to something else while you're playing it. In fact, I think that's the best way probably to play it.
Yes.
And, and I think it's really simple to pick up and learn too. I think if you watch like just a couple minutes of it, it may look overwhelming. Like what is going on? How do you know what all this does? But it's actually really easy to get started in that game.
Is that true for someone who's never played a game of poker in their life?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest challenge for somebody who's never played poker
is learning the hands.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Learning the hands, like learning what a full house or a flush or.
But even then, it has like a cheat sheet for you where you can, scroll or like hover over that, and it tells you. So.
Yeah, because I'm like, I've never played poker in my life. I've played cribbage forever. So I'm like, a lot of the things are like related. Where I'm like, okay, that's what it is in comparison. But
I think you would not have a lot of trouble picking up and learning it. Because I mean, a lot of it is really just like, hey, I can make 2 pairs here, or I can make 3 of a kind and a pair, and so that's a full house, and like you can pick that up pretty quickly.
For sure.
Okay.
It's easier probably if you have a background in poker, like having played, but I'm not one of those people who spends like hours on end, like online playing poker or something.
Yeah.
But I did learn it playing as a kid growing up. So yeah, Balatro is just it. So like you can beat the game and it's not that hard to like win a run at it. But what becomes really fascinating is, yes, what you talked about, Christina, with like these endless runs, right? And so once you beat it, you can say, hey, I just want to continue. I want to do an endless run. And then you're like figuring out, okay, well, what is the way to like really build up my deck with these jokers, right? And then you're also not just building out with the jokers, you have the planets, which will increase how much you get for 2 of a kind or the different hands. And then you also have the tarot cards, which you can alter like a particular hand or alter your cards going forward, and you can draw particular cards. There's just so many different things going on. But the thing that I think the game does really well is it does a tutorial at the beginning and kind of explains everything to you. And then as you progress, it introduces these new systems. But like you can start off playing those systems really simply, and then as you get better, you start to learn the depth of them. So you start to learn things like, oh, well, as Christina was saying, this guy's building up a pair and how much of a value a pair gets, and like, oh, well, that's the way to get a really high score. Like you can beat the early levels not doing that, but the later levels, you really have to build that up. And so just a 4x multiplier is not enough. You need to build up that times 2.4 multiplier and build that up over time. And so that's deciding how you spend your money and everything. And it just becomes a really interesting game. And a game that you can replay a lot.
Absolutely.
So I've already won several runs, but like I just keep going back to it because I want to see what the new jokers are, and I want to figure out new ways to like build that up.
Because you also get like different decks. Like the deck you start off with gives you an extra discard. Certain decks give you extra hands. Certain decks give you extra like coins, stuff like that. And like there's different advantages to and disadvantages, honestly, to different decks that you can choose. So it's like almost every part of the game is just like figuring out how you can tweak it to best min-max your way to these huge scores.
Right. But like all of that comes with time. Like you can sit down and start having fun with the game not knowing any of that, and you'll just learn it as you go through. And the game is still fun without knowing that.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that's the key to, for me, with card games, card video games, let's say, is like I want it to be simple enough I can sit down and start having fun right away. I don't want to have to go like take a college course in Magic the Gathering to have any clue what's going on.
Yeah.
And so that's too high of a learning curve for me. And I think games like this, games like Marvel Snap, have that very nice learning curve where it's an easy on ramp, and then the more you play it, the more you get out of it by learning the intricacies. But yeah, I mean, it was on sale. I think it still is on sale on Steam this week, I guess for its first week of release. I would tell people that's a game. If you just want something kind of cheap, I think it was maybe $10 or $11 with discount. If you want something kind of cheap that you will get hours of enjoyment out of, Balatro is a great game.
But be ready for the addiction.
It is a game you set down and you're like, I'll just play this for 20 minutes. And then 2 hours later, you're still playing it. It's got that, I always reference it as the civilization addiction, because that game is one where you sit down to play for 20 minutes and it's like 5 hours later. So Balatro, big thumbs up, big recommendation. I played the demo for a game called Children of the Sun. This was one of the demos as part of the Steam Next Fest. Children of the Sun is a sniper game where you are on the outside of an environment, so like kind of up on a hill overlooking it, and you have a sniper rifle and you kind of can move left or right along a, let's say about 180 degrees on one side of the environment, and you can pick where you want to shoot from. You aim, you shoot, and when that bullet hits a object, you can then from there redirect it where you want. So if you ever saw the movie Want It with Angelina Jolie, where they were like bending bullets in midair, I think it's based on a comic book graphic novel. But anyways, this is basically that. So like it ends up being more of a puzzle game. Like you're going to think like, oh, it's a shooter, but it's not really a shooter. It's a puzzle game because you shoot the first person, then you have to get the bullet to the next person, and then you have to get to the next person. And so there might be 6 people in this environment, and how can you hit all of them with this single bullet? And so you're kind of like trying to make it like ricochet around the environment. And so it starts off really easy with a big wide open environment. Pretty soon there's like buildings in the way, so you're having to shoot through windows. And then you get the ability where you can curve the bullet. So after you it hits something, you can like make it curve a little bit as it goes to its next destination.
I'm a bad person for this. Is the final level JFK?
Oh, no.
Yes, you are a bad person for this.
And just as a disclaimer, I just looked it up. The aesthetic will nowhere put you near JFK. It looks like a very pretty game and not real.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely like got an aesthetic to it, right? Like it's got a look to it that is not grounded in reality. No, I don't know, Alicia. I've only played the demo. I haven't gotten to the end of the game. That was not the question I was expecting.
Same.
So, I mean, maybe if it was the Pyre Wash simulator makers, absolutely,
no.
that is exactly what they would make this the final level.
I think this is too soon. I don't know.
I was killed when my mother was an infant.
Shh. It was a national tragedy.
60 years is too soon.
70. It was 1963.
Yeah, that would be 60 years. It's 2020.
Oh, yeah.
I
just did prelims this week. My brain's still fried.
Stop trying to add on decades. Anyway, so like one of the things that you can do, so like there will be vehicles and you can actually target the gas tank. And so like you can shoot the gas tank and take out people with the explosion from that. But then when things explode, it's hard to see where the next person is because the fire is like distorting it and everything. It's a cool demo. Like, I don't know how the full final game will be. I don't know if I'll still be as into it when I play the final game. But the demo of it's really cool. And it's a whole lot of fun, and it's worth checking out if you have any interest in that. And again, it's much more of a puzzle game than a shooter. Let's see. The last game that I played this week is Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore. All right. People listening, are you familiar with the CDI Zelda games? So, the Wand of Gamelon and the Eye of something. What's the second one? I forget the name.
I don't know, but the CDI Zelda games, just what an existence.
So we have seen a trailer of this previously. I think we mentioned this game like last year sometime because it premiered in a trailer at one of these events. I forget what it was. But anyways, Arzette is a game in the style of the CDI Zelda games. So for those who don't know, who may be listening,
please look them up.
Yeah.
In the 90s, Panasonic put out a game system called the CDI, the CD Interactive. They actually sold it via late night infomercials. And I mean, they did. As a kid, I watched this infomercial because you're a kid and you're an idiot. But it was also about a video game system. So it was really like, hey, what if we made this system that was something to put in the living room under the television, right? And it's going to be, it's going to have like informational things like, CD encyclopedias on it, but it's also going to have some games. There's a whole backstory about why Zelda ends up on here because Nintendo backed out their deal with Panasonic to make a CD attachment for the Super Nintendo. And so Panasonic had the rights to, or I keep saying Panasonic, I mean Philips CDI. Philips had the right to, from that, to make some games using Nintendo properties. So they actually made 3 games. Only 2 of those, I think, were ever released, the Mario game and the Zelda game. There was a second Zelda game that never got released.
The Zelda CDI games make the "Excuse me, princess" look like Tears of the Kingdom.
Right. So these games have reached a level of infamy because they're so terrible looking and they're so bad at playing and everything. They're just terrible games. They're like easily the worst Zelda games of the entire Zelda franchise, and by a mile, really. But anything that is related to Nintendo, and particularly anything that's like so bad, is going to build some sort of fandom behind it.
There is a level, like when you watch the right people playing, like Point Crow played the Zelda CDI games and just like watching how bad it is for him becomes so bad it's good.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's still entertaining, basically.
Yeah. Think of this like think of it like bad movies that become sort of like cult favorites, like Manos: The Hand of Fate and
Sharknado.
Right, like those sorts of movies that we're going to all get together and watch this and make fun of it, right? So people have done this with these games, which has built a level of, I guess, affinity for these games. So the studio said, hey, we're going to make a game in the style of those. So
that is absolutely delightful.
A big attraction of those games was they had full motion video, animated segments of Zelda and Link and the characters in there. And the animation is bizarre. It is lots of zooms in and out on the characters and lots of movement. Like their hands are constantly moving. And there's like a sort of jitteriness to the lines. Like they're, if you've ever seen Dr. Katz.
Dr. Katz or Super Jail or Home Movies.
Yeah. Like any of those sorts of shows are sort of done in this similar animation style, but not as crazy and extreme as those Zelda games were. So this team set out to make a game in the style of that. That's a terrible idea on the surface, right? Like on the surface, that's a horrible idea. These are bad games. Like, and no matter what anyone thinks, making an intentionally bad game is never as funny or cool as people seem to think it's going to be. People do this. Every few years, we get an attempt at this. We're going to make a really stupid game, and it's going to be real funny because of how bad and dumb it is. And it's like, no, it's just a bad game, right? Like, it's sort of like when they try to make an intentionally bad movie, and you're like, oh, no. Like, movies are...
very rarely works.
Yeah, movies are entertaining, like, you know, The Room, like when people are trying to make something good, like in their mind, they're making something good, and then it just goes hilariously off the, rails.
See, Cats.
Yeah, I mean, like, right, like Cats would not, I don't know if Cats is entertaining to people, but like.
No, I cannot. I cannot.
But, right, like the people behind Cats were being 100% sincere in making that movie. They thought they were making something good. And so...
Sorry, I was thinking about cats.
You weren't thinking of their butts, were you? Because
now I am. But
because they didn't have them.
I was thinking of their hands and just how creepy. I don't know. Okay, sorry.
Taylor Swift is in that movie. How bizarre is that?
Taylor Swift was ecstatic to be in that movie. I remember watching her on the Graham Norton show saying how they had like cat training, and she only had to be there for like a week, and she went the full time.
Look, I mean,
because she's amazing.
My thing is, most of the time when people are making a movie, they have no idea if that movie is actually good or bad.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to actors, they'll tell you, and it'll be actors like who are in one of the greatest films ever made, and they'll be like, yeah, we had no idea.
Yeah.
We had no idea if this was any good or not while we were in the process of making it. So it's a crapshoot.
Godfather, when they were filming the wedding scene in The Godfather, all of them were sitting around saying this is going to be the worst movie ever made.
Well, because so much of it relies in like post-production,
Right.
like where how the film gets put together, the various things that gets put on top of film with sound and stuff like that help tell the story. So, yeah.
So the same
Anyway, Arzette.
the same is true of video games often, right? Like sometimes you hear people who will say, yeah, like by the end of this game, we realized this is a dog. But like a lot of times they don't know that until the last few months of development because games don't really come together to the last few months. So when people ask why did they even make this game? Didn't they know this game was terrible? It's like, well, they probably knew, but it was too late by then, right? Like it was ready to be released by the time they realized it wasn't working for whatever reason. So anyways, Arzette is trying to do a new game in that style. And it is an amazing production in how faithful they are to that original game. So they do amazing stuff with this game in staying faithful to those Zelda games. So first of all, they copy the animation, and the animation is fairly spot on. Like they get the look of the animation right. And like that could have been the entire joke, right? Our cutscenes are going to be in the style of that animation. That animation is so distinct and particularly in video games, so directly linked to pun, so directly linked to those games that you could have just done that and that would have been the end of the joke. But they go beyond that. So like the levels are designed like the levels in those games, including the fact that they have these like painted backgrounds that sometimes there's a ledge that you can jump on, but you don't know because you're like, that just looks like a background. And that was part of those Zelda games. Like you never knew, like, is that something I can stand on or not? And they do that in this game remarkably well, where you're just like, I don't know, like, can I jump onto that? Is that a hole? Am I going to fall if I jump onto that? And they like manage that extremely well in this game of copying the look of that. Then they, the voice acting, everything's voice acted, obviously the animated segments, but like even when you talk to a character within a level, that's animated and like kind of superimposed over the level itself. And the characters are all voice acted, and the voice acting is, so it's not intentionally terrible, but it's intentionally like just bizarre enough to fit in with the way CD games were of that era, where it's like you weren't going out and hiring the professional voice actors that games get today, right? So like today, people are so spoiled because every video game generally has good voice acting today, because you're actually hiring real professional voice actors to come in and do this. So even if the dialogue is terrible and clunky, they're delivering it well, at least. And, but you know, back in the 90s, when they first started doing CD-based games, it was like,
you got your neighbor Fred.
Right. Or Bob from accounting at the, you know, at the studio. So you'd get Bob in and be like, hey, we need somebody to voice act, and here, read some of these lines, you know, get Susan from, who's the administrative assistant, get her in here, have her record some lines. And so they do this extremely well in this game with like characters that just, you know, sound like they're trying to do bad impersonations of like, so there's a character that sounds like it's Bobcat Goldthwait, like the actor, like most people know from, I guess, Police Academy, maybe. And like, he sounds like he's trying to do an impression of that actor. And you're like, yeah, that's the way voice acting sounded at that time.
Yeah.
And there's like weird mixing of when you have two characters like talking to each other, where a character will be talking and then it sort of just drowns out their voice at the end of their line so that it can like fade in the next line of the other character.
Oh my gosh. This is a love letter.
It is. Yeah.
Aww.
This is a love letter.
And that's what makes it amazing, because if they were just making fun of it, it would not actually be good. But the fact that they care to get the style of that era right, and like everything from like obviously the animation, but to the way the levels are designed, to the way that the voice acting is mixed together. Like this is a real sort of love letter to it. And so they got it right in that they're not making fun of it, but they're actually like more paying homage to it. Right. And the other thing that they do extremely right is they actually make it better than those games. So like the other thing they could have done wrong is make it play like garbage. Right. And so it could have played entirely like garbage, and you would have played like a level or two and been like, okay, this is horrible. Why would I even bother playing this? I'm not going to say this is a great platformer or a great action game, but it's not terrible. Like it feels competent at that 16-bit level of here's a side-scrolling action game and everything. And there's some neat things with like, okay, you gain an ability later, so you have to go back to this level, and there's some new areas that have opened up. You can go through this wall you couldn't earlier. So there's a bit of that, very light Metroidvania design to it and everything. So you have this entirely terrible original game that if it wasn't Zelda, probably would have been forgotten long ago. Like there's similarly terrible games from that era that nobody talks about. There's worse games on the CDI than those Zelda games. But
because it's Zelda.
Yeah, because it's Zelda, that's the one people talk about and remember. And to go back and make a new game in that style and make it actually better while still retaining what's charming about those games is an insane challenge. An insane idea to like even have in the first place and be like, we're going to do this, and they do it. They pull it off, and it's actually worth playing.
Because I can imagine them trying to pitch this to people and people going, why? Why?
Yeah, I mean, it is the sort of thing like if this was not an indie studio doing this, right? Like nobody at EA is going to do this.
Right, right.
You could not get this through a meeting at EA, a pitch meeting, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're absolutely right, Christina. Like nobody would ever fund this game. And yet people will because they're like, this will be a good laugh. And what they end up with is something that's actually like kind of cool. And
It's laughing with, and it's a love letter that darn it, now I want to play this game.
Well, playing it, I kept thinking this is the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, Rocky Horror
games.
is what I was thinking of with all this,
Because Rocky Horror is a tongue-in-cheek homage to those like bad old science fiction movies, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that Rocky Horror gets right is that it's sort of making fun of them, but it's also sort of like trying to make a good one of those at the same time. And, like if nothing else, like you kind of have to go like, well, the music's good in Rocky Horror. Like even if you don't like anything else about it, the music's pretty fun.
Good luck ever watching it and not walking out singing the Time Warp.
Fair.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the reason that has persisted. If Rocky Horror was just terrible and stupid, people would still not be going to midnight showings, some 50 years later, 40 years later.
I went this year.
Did you do the one at Marion?
I would have gone this year, but I was in Chicago with my sister. but it is tradition now that my friends and I go to the one in Marion on Halloween.
So, it's just a really cool game. It is the amount of detail, the amount of effort they went to get it right is pretty amazing. Oh, so this is a small spoiler, but like there are like little bonus levels occasionally that you'll find as you go through the levels, and you'll go into them. The first bonus level that I found in the game is a recreation of the Hotel Mario, where you're going on different floors and having to shut all the doors, and you go into an elevator and go up to the next floor, and you have to shut all the doors there. So, like, even including that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's delightful.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
This was made by people. This is the sort of thing. So, like, I don't mean this negatively, but like, you would sometimes have 18-year-olds going, oh, this would be really funny if we did this, and we would all make fun of this, and ha ha ha. And this is more like people who are older and talented and who are going, yeah, we could do that, but like it's a one-note joke.
Yeah.
Like you see it and then that's the end of it. But if we actually do this more homage, we might actually make something that people care about.
Yeah.
And so I think that was my reaction. I think that's the reaction other people are going to have to this. And what I've seen of some people I've read is, oh, this is actually like cool that they did this.
Yeah.
And like, this is not the joke that we were expecting it to be. And that actually makes it much better.
Right.
And it's still like tongue firmly in cheek, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It still knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
So that's Arzette. That's a cool game. That's worth checking out. I can't believe I'm saying that. But like, I think what I'd be really interested in is if you had never seen those CDI games, if you played this game, how would you react to it?
Right.
Yeah.
Because with no context, it would be a bizarre experience because it feels like a game out of nowhere, like a game lost that because you don't even go back and look at games now that look like those Zelda games.
Right.
Right.
It's not even like when the Garbage Pail Kids did the
the
they're-
NES style game.
the NES one. We're like, okay, yeah, we all are familiar with that.
And that looked like an NES game, and it played
Yeah.
like an NES game, right? Whereas those Zelda CDI games don't look or play like anything else.
Right.
No, they are just a creature unto themselves.
Yeah, so this is cool. So check out Arzette. That's a very cool product out there. All right, let's move on to news. So we finally got that Nintendo Partner Direct. That was kind of exciting after getting delayed potentially a week. Some news that came out of that. We have some games here. I'm just going to run through these. If we want to talk about any of these kind of more in depth, we can. They showed off a new Endless Ocean game, Endless Ocean Luminous, that includes a 30-player online mode. If you've never played the Endless Ocean games, the first one was on the Wii, and it is... there was a sequel that's a little bit different than the original, but the original is very much just, hey, here's underwater, go explore it. We recreated the ocean and you're like a scuba diver, go explore it. The second game added some more RPG elements to it. I actually never played the second one, I don't think. But the first one was neat at the time. This looks pretty. And I think the idea of like 30 players exploring underwater at the same time together could be neat. So we'll see what comes of that. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance was shown. Epic Mickey Rebrushed. So this is a ground-up remake of the original Epic Mickey that came out on the Wii.
This is one of those games. I wanted Epic Mickey when it was on the Wii, and I never got it. So this is one of those that I'm like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just make child Alicia happy and buy a game that I wanted as a kid.
Yeah, so this game includes Oswald the Rabbit, the original Disney character that Walt Disney lost the rights to.
Which I think the original games added him in the second one, but I don't think the original had him in the first Epic Mickey.
I think he's in the first one.
He's in the first one.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I only ever played the first one. I never played the second one
Okay.
at the time. And I liked the game. There were some problems with it at the time. Like there were some like control issues because you're playing it with the Wii, controls. So I'm actually interested to see like, do they work on the controls with this? And, now with modern controllers, I would think that this game actually could be a lot better.
Yeah.
But it was always a cool looking game and had like a cool style to it. Let's see. They announced a Star Wars Battlefront Classics collection. So this is the original first two Battlefront games, not the modern Battlefront games.
I love that we have to clarify the original the original first two.
So they made a Battlefront 1 and 2, and then they made new Battlefront 1 and 2. This is those original games.
Just the Star Wars vibe, honestly.
This is going to have online multiplayer. They're adding a couple new characters. Kit Fisto, which is like the most insane name for a character. Especially when you first hear somebody say it and it sounds like they're saying Kid Fisto.
Right? I was like, excuse me?
Yeah. Like, inappropriate much? So they are adding some new things to this as well, which is neat. I know people, like when I was teaching probably, let's say 8 years ago, these games, my students loved these games, and they had like a religious devotion to them. They thought they were like the most amazing games ever. And I'm not making fun of that. Like they were just games I never really played. And I think a lot of people, when they released the new Battlefront games, were disappointed because they didn't play like those old games. So there's like a lot of sort of pent up desire for a re-release of these. They showed off a game, Unicorn Overlord, which has a demo out now.
That's just a delightful title.
It is.
It is. I just looked it up because I did the same thing, and it does not look like what I expected it to look like.
No, it's a sort of a fantasy strategy game.
It looks kind of Fire Emblem art style.
Oh, and which is exactly what it is, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not the like unicorn farming simulator that you want.
I was thinking like Cult of the Lamb art style when I heard the name.
I was thinking even cutesier and gayer than that. Because I was like, oh, yeah.
It's the Overlord part that maybe makes you think, oh, it can't be all cutesy, right?
Some gay people are real intense, dude.
Fair. They showed off a new trailer for South Park Snow Day.
Which is like the best looking South Park game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's not saying much, though.
It's kind of a third-person action game, which is a little disappointing because I really like those role-playing games that they did. But it does look good. You're right. It is probably I don't know. Realistic's not the right term to use with South Park.
No.
The closest to the show?
No, it's actually probably the furthest from the show.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. Because the show is made from originally construction paper.
Right. Yeah. Those role-playing games actually capture very much the look of the show.
Yes.
They're pretty much spot on. This has a slightly more Pixar maybe look.
Yeah.
Is the way. Like,
sure.
What if you made South Park with Pixar? They showed off a new Monkey Ball game, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, which is going to have a 16-player online mode, which is like neat. That last Super Monkey Ball, which was a remake of like the first two games, which is a very good game. This one is adding online multiplayer, which I don't think that last game had. They showed off a trailer for World of Goo 2, a game called Another Crab's Treasure.
Which I'm looking at right now. The aesthetic of it is very interesting.
So it has a very sort of like cutesy art style to it. And when you first see it, you think, oh, this is going to be like a children's game. But then it is described by them in the trailer as a Souls-like. So like Dark Souls style combat to the game, but with this very sort of cutesy aesthetic of underwater creatures, like because you were playing a crab.
Yeah. I'm so cute. Look at that. He's got a little crab fork.
Yeah. So your shell, you collect different shells and they provide you different abilities. So like that's the caveat to the game and everything. And it looks cool. I'm not super excited about the Souls-like combat, but
it's like Nintendo does Souls-like.
Well, it's not made by Nintendo, but yeah, it is like Nintendo aesthetic on a Souls-like.
Yeah.
Let's see. They also showed off Penny's Big Breakaway. This is the new game from the Sonic Mania team. Like, this is my favorite thing. The Sonic Mania team wanted to make another Sonic game, and Sega, in their infinite wisdom, was like, "We don't want you. You just made like the best Sonic game in years. We don't want you to do this." And so they went off and made this new third-person platformer where you have a yo-yo and you're like you controlling it with the right stick and doing different things. There's a demo out for that game. I have not played it yet, but it looks really cool. It looks fun. Pepper Grinder, which is a game where you are drilling through different objects and enemies and the environment, is a 2D action game. And Pocket Card Jockey Ride On, which is a port and expansion or sequel to the original 3DS game. I think this is actually a port of a game that was released onto Apple Arcade.
That makes sense.
I've never played Pocket Card Jockey, but the people who play it love it. It is a solitaire-based horse racing game.
And they're so cute, too.
And you can breed them together. So if you want horse breeding...
Yeah. There you go. It's the game. It's the game for all the horse girls.
Oh, no.
This is... This is what you actually...
something about myself.
It's okay. This is the game that you wanted when you saw Unicorn Overlord.
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So no big first party news, but of course they called this a partner direct, so they were very much telegraphing that hey, this is our partners, this is third party, this is not, don't expect any of our franchises at this. So we did not get that. Lots of people were really upset about this, but I think it's actually I thought it was a pretty good little show. It showed a diverse types of games, and there's at least a few of these that I'm really interested in playing. Some of them I don't care anything about, but I'm not sure I'm that excited for Unicorn Overlord. But, Pepper Grinder and Pocket Card Jockey, I think both look really cool. Penny's Big Breakaway, Another Crab's Treasure, all those look really cool to me. Epic Mickey, I'm kind of interested in. I've played that before.
I'm really excited for Epic Mickey.
If I'm interested to see what they change with that game, because that I think that might bring me back to it. They also, as part of this, showed off the first Xbox games that, our long national nightmare of what's happening with Xbox. So Xbox had said, hey, we're bringing games to other consoles, including PlayStation 5 and Switch. So as part of this, they showed those off. Almost immediately after, Xbox just had to come out and say, okay, here are the games we're releasing and for which systems. So I kind of separated that. They announced 4 games. The 4 games are Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, and Sea of Thieves. Pentiment is coming to the PS4 and 5 and Switch. That actually has already released on February 22nd, so that's available now. Hi-Fi Rush is coming to PlayStation 5 on March 19th. Grounded is coming to PS4 and 5 and Switch on April 16th. And Sea of Thieves on PlayStation 5 on April 30th.
I'm so sad Hi-Fi Rush isn't coming to Switch.
That was the rumor that it was, and now it's kind of interesting about why is it not? Were those rumors just wrong, or is that something that needs more time because they're having to develop an entirely new version, right?
That would make sense.
Or, as some have speculated, is Hi-Fi Rush a Switch 2 game? And so was that some of the confusion that they're planning to release this whenever the Switch 2 launches? Pentiment is a really cool game. Hi-Fi Rush is a really cool game. I've never really played much of Grounded. Sea of Thieves, I think, is neat. I think that's a lot better game than when I played it, because I played it at launch, and then they've added so much to that game. I think it's really gotten a lot better. And I think the thing that's really interesting is these games are coming out over the next 2 months, March and into April, and then they're done, which I think lends even more credibility that more games are going to follow these.
Yeah. They're here's our first step.
Right.
And there's more steps coming.
Let's get these out there. Let's see how the community responds to them, and then maybe we dive more into this. So just some follow-up on what we have been talking the past at least couple of weeks about, So we finally know all of our answers, at least in the short term.
Until the Switch 2 is like, because I bet that's why they've only done a couple of months as well, is because they're again waiting on like Nintendo. When are you going to talk about this, so that we can talk about the games that then will transfer to Switch 2, maybe?
Right. So the thing we should note about the Switch 2 is all the rumors that have come out. I think we mentioned this briefly last week, but all the rumors that have come out since then seem to be backing up is that the Switch 2 has been delayed to 2025.
Yeah.
And it will probably be sometime spring of 2025. That's kind of shocking. I thought we'd get a Switch 2 this year. I don't, obviously nobody's saying why that delay might have happened. There's all sorts of reasons that could be. It could be that they're waiting on development of games. It could be that it is an issue with getting parts for that system. I don't know how the supply chain. Obviously, some of those supply chain problems have been fixed because you're getting PlayStation 5s on every store shelf if you want them.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see when we hear actual news. I don't think we'll hear news in early March anymore about a Switch 2 if it's not coming out this year.
No, it'll probably be more summer or even fall.
Yeah, I don't think we hear anything before summer at the earliest.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention this trailer. This came out of not attached to anything else. There's this game called Kingmakers. And Kingmakers is this trailer that starts off and it looks like medieval dudes in knights in armor battling each other. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a pickup truck shows up and starts driving through all the knights. And then a guy jumps out of the pickup truck with a machine gun, like an AK-47, and starts gunning down all these knights. and so then you're like, okay, well, that's kind of crazy. You're going to like do the whole like, Connecticut and King Arthur's court, except he has a pickup truck and a machine gun. But then it goes crazier because then it shows you like defending like from the castle turrets with a sniper rifle. So you're taking out knights on the battlefield and everything with a sniper rifle. Then it shows you like actually like playing a bit of a strategy game, like a real-time strategy game, moving like your troops around, but still with your pickup truck and machine gun. And it's got to be the craziest, but also like one of the coolest trailers that anybody's released in a while, because I had heard nothing about this game until this trailer came out. And now I'm like actually super interested in this game.
Yeah, again, I'm watching as we do it. Then, like, you throw grenades on the battlefield and just see, like, horses fly in the air. Like, what is this?
Oh, my gosh.
It is the type of stupid thing you can make in a game and, like, people will buy it, right? Like, people will buy into this in the way that this would be a harder sell in a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like,
in a movie, you would have to do a better job explaining why we have knights in armor and pickup trucks in the same space.
Well, I mean, we do something like Army of Darkness, right? And like that's such a hard like tone to get right, of something like Army of Darkness. So this is a little bit more kind of militaristic, I guess, than Army of Darkness, but it's cool looking. So I wanted to mention that trailer.
Yeah, the way that it introduced the truck is it shows you driving down the street in like a big city, and then all of a sudden it flashes you onto that battlefield, and then you start driving through people.
It's like Back to the Future style. Yeah. Like, so cool looking, interesting game. We'll see how that comes together. Let's see. EA Sports College Football is offering players $600 plus a copy of the game under the name, image, and likeness rules to opt in to their new football game they're releasing this summer.
Wait. When we say players, we mean college football players?
Yes. So,
okay, I read that as players of the game, and I was so confused.
Yeah.
I was like, why are we giving players of the game a $600 plus copy of the game?
No, so this is football players, college football players from Division I schools can have their name, image, and likeness in the game. EA Sports will pay them $600. That is for everyone, regardless of who they are. And they also get a copy of the game.
That makes a lot more sense.
So, like, just a little bit of background. EA Sports stopped making college sports games because they got sued by players. They were not including their names and likenesses, but they were including like their number and their statistics. And so players were able to argue in court, hey, they're doing everything but our name. This is making us identifiable within the game. And so they're essentially using us without our permission.
Yeah.
And that basically killed college sports games. Since the name, image, and likeness rules came about, EA announced they were going to develop a new college football game. And this is how they're working around that, right? So players can opt in if they want their name and image in the game. This is the compensation they'll get. If they choose to opt out, I assume that just means that, they'll stick in a generic player.
It makes me feel a little weird, but then again, like, I think while I would much rather watch a college football game than pro, like, college football, like, the athletes sometimes are treated like garbage, especially in regards to, like, compensation with certain things when it comes to, like, this. Like, they don't get the proceeds from their jerseys that get sold, and oftentimes, like, their scholarship will cover, just the basics, and then but they can't get a job because it's against contract, and it just, I don't know, $600, I mean, again, they're only college players, and they can choose to do this, but $600 and a copy of the game, it feels very, I don't know.
It's one of those things, it feels like it's not enough, and yet I also look at it and know it's more than they get from a lot else in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, I think you're right, Christina, the problem is that they don't, they're not allowed to work. So the issue that you run into with a lot of college players is, okay, well, I have my tuition and room and board paid, but if I want to go to a movie, how do I have money to go to a movie? I'm not allowed to go do anything. Now, because of the name, image, and likeness rules, players are allowed to, like, get endorsements or to sell, like, their image to be on a T-shirt or something, right?
Yeah.
So, like, Caitlin Clark, the basketball player at Iowa, is apparently making quite a bit of money because she is the, like, star female basketball player at the moment. And, obviously some of the male football players at big schools like Alabama are making quite a killing off of this. But, again, this is universal, $600. So whether you are the quarterback at Alabama or you are, the third string tight end at a smaller school, you're still getting the same $600 from this. I mean, I will say it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And
it feels like not enough, but at the same time, it's better than what they get.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know what enough would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would be interested to know how much do NFL players get to appear in Madden football? Mm-hmm. Like, that's negotiated through the NFL Players Association, I believe. So I'd be interested to know, like, what sort of cut are they getting to appear in the game?
For sure.
And, there's definitely a difference there. And there's a lot more college players than there are NFL players.
Right.
But kind of interesting to see that news. Let's see. WWE 2K24. I feel like we've talked about this the past couple of weeks as news dribbles out. They have released a list of all the wrestlers included in 2K24, and that list excludes Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar. They're not on the roster, so we talked about Brock Lesnar was already removed from the cover of the game. It is almost assuredly Brock Lesnar was in this game at some point. They had him on the cover. They had his image and everything. You're going to include him in the game. And he is not in the listed roster, so it appears he has been excluded from the game. Of course, they have a create a wrestler mode in that game. That's always super popular. You can share those online. Day one, we were definitely going to see a Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar
Yeah.
upload it to that Creator Wrestler. In fact, there will be multiple versions upload it. But that has historically been done. I mean, Hulk Hogan was not in these games for several years because of some of his comments. And if you went on the online Creator Wrestler, there were lots of versions of Hulk Hogan. So, but this is, this seems like the obvious and smart move to remove these people who are at the center of all this controversy.
Yeah.
Riot's League of Legends fighting game that they have been working on has had its name officially released. It is 2XKO, and it is going to release in 2025. Or that's at least what they're targeting. Kind of interesting to see them making a game. This is the team that was making, can't think of the name of it, it was a robot fighting game that they were developing, and then Riot bought them and was like, hey, now you're making a League of Legends fighting game. Let's see. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has the second highest scoring Metacritic score of any game in the series, only behind Final Fantasy IX.
Oh, wow.
So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth currently sits at a 93. Final Fantasy IX sits at a 94. So just to put that into context of the entire franchise, how this game is doing in early reviews, those just went live, I believe, yesterday. So
yeah.
I am so excited.
The early reviews are very glowing of that game. The major complaint I've read is there are some issues with where the story goes. And so, but otherwise people are pretty amazed at that game. In fact, it's gotten more glowing reviews than I was expecting it to get. I was expecting it to be good because that first one's good, but.
Well, and no matter what they do with the story, somebody's going to be upset. So
sure.
I'm not surprised that some people have been like, oh, don't like where the story's gone, but I'm so excited.
Power World has passed 25 million players in its first month. So we've been talking on and off about how popular that game is. So to put it into a bit of context for you, 25 million people have played that game in the first month. That's pretty big for like a little indie game out of nowhere.
Yeah, that is awesome for them. I love that.
Remember, that game is on Xbox Game Pass, so part of that 25 million are people who are subscribed to Game Pass and who are checking it out. But still, that's a whole lot of people who are just buying the game outright as well. Llamasoft, the Jeff Mentor story, releases March 13th. This is the new game from Digital Eclipse and their Gold Master series. This is tracing the career of Jeff Mentor. Jeff Mentor is like maybe today best known for games like Tempest 2000 and Space Giraffe. He made the new Polybius game, kind of playing off of that classic urban legend in video games. Jeff Mentor, like, he calls his company Llamasoft because he like actually raises llamas, like it lives on a farm and raises llamas.
That's amazing.
And so this is looking at his career, these games. It's going to have a huge collection of games he's done over the years.
It looks pretty trippy, at least some of the pictures of the cover art and stuff.
Yeah, so his games are trippy. Like, his games are very much like, hey.
And you hear the name Space Giraffe and you're like, okay.
Yeah. And this is going to have some unreleased games that he worked on, at least one unreleased game that never was working on for a failed system that never got released. And this is part of that, Digital Eclipse series. So this is the same people that did The Making of Karateka, who did Atari 50. It's going to be presented in the same style with a lot of behind-the-scenes interviews and design documents and all of that. It's, they just put Karateka out in the fall. And so now here we are, beginning of March, and they're putting out another one of these. So they're churning these out at a pretty good pace, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah. Well, especially because I remember we were a little worried when they got bought out
Yeah, Atari bought them.
Yeah, but like it's good to see that they're still, like you said, able to churn out high quality video game history.
Yeah, and they're doing it at a level and in a way that nobody else is.
Yeah.
I mean, their products stand head and shoulders above other companies, to the point where you go, well, yeah, like I want Nintendo to work with them. I want Nintendo to let them put out a Mario collection or put out, Nintendo arcade collection with Donkey Kong and Popeye and Radar Scope and those sorts of games. That's never going to happen.
No.
But it would be really cool if they would allow that. But maybe other companies could, like Capcom and Konami, like those sorts of companies. Konami's worked with them. Digital Eclipse is the same team that put out the Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All the old NES, Super Nintendo, and arcade Ninja Turtle games. And that's a really cool collection too, though it doesn't have as much behind the scenes stuff. Let's see. Netflix has ordered more episodes of the Pokemon Concierge stop motion series. So I think that first season was 10 episodes, so they've ordered some more episodes of that.
Have you watched it yet?
I have not watched it yet, but my friends did, and they were like, it is exactly the cozy thing that we need right now. Like, it's just cozy. The main girl is very relatable in that, like, her boss will be like, okay, so like spend the day just like getting to know the hotel. And she's like, so I need to make a map and I need to make a plan in an Excel document. And and like,
you said cozy and Excel document in the same like
because then it's everyone around her telling her, no, it's okay. You don't have to be that.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to. You can chill.
Gotcha. So this sounds like it would be good like post prelims Alicia fodder.
Yes, it is. Pretty much my post prelims is finish Percy Jackson and then this.
Yeah, don't add Avatar to the list, at least not yet.
We'll see.
But that's cool to see that because that series was one of the ones that actually looked different and looked like it had a sort of unique style to it. I mean, with the stop motion, it was one of the, because remember they announced like 5 Pokemon series like all at once. It felt like, and that was the one that stood out to me. So I'm glad to see that's been successful. Let's see. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree releases June 21st for $40. They put out a trailer for that. That trailer looks really cool. $40 is a lot of money, but they are saying that this is an entire new environment and entire new story. So it sounds like this is more than like a traditional DLC. This is more maybe at the level of a what do they call those? Like a standalone spinoff. So I'm thinking kind of like Miles Morales. The Spider-Man game that they put out that really could have been DLC, but sort of became its own like standalone game. They did that with one of the Uncharted games. I forget what the name of that one is, but it's the 2 female characters are the ones that you're playing and controlling in it. And that's actually like, the thing I'll say is that Spider-Man game, Miles Morales, is probably a better game than Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
And then that Uncharted game is maybe the best Uncharted game that they've put out since like part 2. And it's kind of cool to see companies doing those kind of smaller scale, kind of standalone projects.
For sure.
And they're hinting that there may be more DLC for Elden Ring. So I was with a group of people just yesterday who lost their minds over this. So I think they're going to be successful.
Yeah, for sure.
And man, I really like that first Elden Ring. That's a great game. They released the trailer for the Borderlands movie. I don't know if you all got a chance to watch that or not, or have any interest.
I didn't watch all of it, but I did see that Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and it made me very excited.
Jamie Lee Curtis, Cate Blanchett. Let's see. Jack Black is doing the voice of Claptrap, the robot. the general...
Okay, Christina is showing me the poster right now, and that looks amazing.
Right?
So the general reaction online seems to be, this feels very Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
And my response to that is, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Like those were really fun movies that people who aren't even
Yep.
into comic books got really into. And so if you're making a video game movie, that's not a bad place to start.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I played the game. Like that, they can fit in there. Yeah.
I mean, I really, the fact that you have Jamie Lee Curtis and Cate Blanchett in your dumb video game shooter movie is cool to me.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
even like Jamie Lee Curtis, I feel like makes sense because she's been involved in like.
She does cosplay and stuff.
She does cosplay. Like she's done, she worked with the Completionist live streams long before all his issues came out.
She worked with Dead by Daylight when they released all the Michael stuff.
Yeah, so like I feel like she is the kind of person I would absolutely.
You didn't say Mikey this time.
I did.
No confusion with Ninja
started
Turtles.
to, and then I was like, "Girl, where are you at? No DVD, no Mikey."
But like I feel like it makes sense for her to be in this. Cate Blanchett surprises me, not because she's not a nerd. I mean, hello, Galadriel, but it just feels like another level of nerd.
I mean, I think the thing with both of them, though, is that these are very good actresses.
Yeah.
These are actresses, Kevin Hart is in this. This feels like a Kevin Hart kind of movie. And like
Jack Black's voice is going to be hovering in there somewhere.
I mean, these are two guys who are in Jumanji.
Yeah.
Right? And so like the fact that, in the modern Jumanji movies are video game based, right? They're not a board game anymore. So like the fact that you get the two of them into this, okay, that makes complete sense.
Yep.
But then the fact that you get Jamie Lee Curtis, who can, like, I don't know what her career is like at this point, but she was just in an Oscar nominated movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis can pick and choose her roles a little more carefully.
Yeah.
And Cate Blanchett definitely can.
Cate Blanchett does not have to do anything she doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
And, you're talking about somebody who is still like, getting nominated for Oscars on a regular basis and and doing stuff. And the fact that they're in it gives me a little bit more hope for it, because I'm like, these are not dumb women. They're not desperate in their career. Mm-hmm. They're doing this because they think there's something interesting here.
Yeah.
And so, like, not that Jack Black and Kevin Hart don't have any discretion.
But I think, like you said, Jack Black and Kevin Hart have more of a comedy actor as like, that's their niche. We expect them to do goofy things.
To voice Bowser.
Yeah. Like Jamie Lee Curtis and Cate Blanchett aren't in that niche. Like they do that, and we've seen that from both of them, but we also have seen
much more serious roles.
Yeah.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so the casting is pretty neat. The Tiny Tina role is being played by, I can't think of the actress's name. It's something, Ariana something. I don't know her last name. But she is the actress from
Greenblatt.
From Barbie, and then she was in like she played the daughter. America Ferrera's daughter in that film, and she was also in like the Avengers film. She played young Gamora in that, and then she was some other big franchise that she's been in. But like I was just thinking, like this young woman is like the hottest young actress. Like it's her and Jenna Ortega. Like just cast them in everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how Haley Steinfeld was in Everything a few years ago, and like has continued to.
Yeah. We do this with young actresses. We're like, we'll put them in everything for 5 years, and then they'll disappear. Maybe. Let's see. Last bit of news here. Sony is apparently testing PlayStation VR 2 for PC. So this is testing the headset to work with PCs. How this would actually work, if it's going to be as simple as plugging a USB cable in, or if you're going to have to remote stream this through your PlayStation in some manner to do this. But it seems to be an admission from Sony that we aren't
Yeah.
putting enough value out for people to buy this headset. So how can we make it that people will want to buy these headsets? My guess is somewhere there is a warehouse with a ton of these setting in it that nobody is buying.
Yeah.
Because they're too expensive and there's just not enough reasons on the PlayStation right now to buy this. And from all reports, this is a very good headset. Fits very comfortably. The specs on it, the resolution, has OLED screens on the inside of it. So it's a really nice headset.
But it's just too expensive for too little use.
Yeah. I mean, there's just not the software there on the PlayStation 5 currently. And Sony has not shown any signs that they are developing that software. They're not putting out announcements. It's not like they've announced, hey, we have a God of War game coming to this or something. So this seems like a smart idea. Maybe this will be a pretty good VR headset for your PC. At this point, having a Meta Quest and being able to remotely connect to my PC and play VR games that way means that I have very little interest in anything that is attached, because having something without cables is just so much more convenient to play that way.
Especially for a VR, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, you are not having people getting tangled up in the wire.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see what comes of that. Maybe there'll be something we're not expecting or seeing. That does it for news. We'll move on to our big question. Our big question comes from our forever faithful fan, Derek, who actually sent this in an email in which he said, hey, I've listened to the latest episode of the podcast while flying in an airplane over Peru. So he was
Derek.
He was on his way to Peru and
I'm jealous.
Listening to the podcast. Yeah. And I kind of feel bad for him. He's listening to our podcast while he's going to Peru.
Well, look, he's not listening to it in Peru. He's listening to it on the way there.
In Peruvian airspace, he is.
But it's not like he's listening to the podcast instead of going to Machu Picchu,
No, he did go to Machu Picchu, though. I don't think he was.
He should.
I don't think he was listening to us while doing that, but who knows? But he did send in a question, so this is his question. This is a less controversial one than some recent ones. So the question for this week is: if you could take one character from a game and put it into a completely different game, what character would it be, and what game would you put it in? And he notes this can't be like taking Wario and putting Wario into Super Mario Brothers. It needs to be like an entirely different series, taking a character and putting it into a different series.
It needs to be a crossover.
Yeah, like a real crossover. Alicia.
So I love this question because literally this week I was watching a YouTuber called Don Schnack, and he did a Kirby Nuzlocke of Pokemon Platinum. So he had a mod where any Pokemon that he caught was replaced with Kirby's, with the different special abilities and all that to get the different Pokemon typings. And
I mean, Kirby is a Pokemon to begin with.
It's definitely not the biggest leap to make. But what I really loved about that video was he built the storyline and all the lore to explain how Kirby being in the Pokemon world was messing things up and left it on a cliffhanger with the Void Termina at the end. So I'm like, I am right now all for putting Kirby in every game, everywhere. Because I'm on a Final Fantasy VII kick right now, I'm going to say I want Kirby on Gaia. I want to see Cloud and Co. have to deal with Kirby. I want to see Rufus Shinra and the Turks just be utterly baffled.
Kirby should just be like Ruby Weapon. You have to fight Kirby after you finish the game.
There we go. Yep. So that, and look, we all know Kirby can beat Sephiroth, so.
That's true.
We do?
Because Super Smash Brothers, everybody else dies. Kirby's the only one who survives.
Yeah. We've seen Kirby beat Sephiroth.
Fair.
So
I don't know, beat so much as fly away.
But yeah, so I'm going with I want Kirby in Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay. Okay, Kirby and Final Fantasy VII. That would really be weird with the new like remake and rebirth to have
Yeah.
Kirby show up.
But then, like, just think how adorable it would be getting to see Kirby, like, interact with Marlene and just...
The Moogles.
The Moogles. It would just make me very happy.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that. Christina.
So speaking of Smash, this is the only thing that I could think. I was like, well, Smash kind of does this. And so what character do I want to see, like, fighting up somebody else, basically? And one character that I think Nintendo did a game for and then kind of ignored, minus putting him in Diddy Kong Racing, is Conker. And I get why they made the game and then was like, shh, we forget about you. Is because he's, like, so not Nintendo. At least, like, his true form, he's very inappropriate in drinks and there's lots of things in that game that are not Nintendo. Conker's for Bad Fur Day. That's what it is, yeah.
Like fighting poo monsters.
That's what I was thinking of when I thought about this question. Because I was like, I want to see Conker, like, throwing poop balls at people or, in those fighting games. Or just, like, getting drunk and doing, like, a drunken master thing to them. Because I think it would be funny. I don't know.
There we go.
So, are you saying you want to see Conker in Smash Brothers?
Yeah. yeah.
I think there's actually like a reasonable chance that might happen someday.
Well, because I was saying, like, I think my favorite game of all time. Well, yes, depending on the day, is Banjo-Kazooie, and the fact that they put Banjo in the latest iteration of Smash, like, gave me hope.
And that's Rare. I mean, Rare made both of those, so
Yep.
yeah. I mean, it's completely plausible. Like, that's not unlike Kirby in Final Fantasy. I think that's not outside the realm of possibility.
I was trying to think realistically. like if Nintendo is sitting somewhere and is like, let me just look through random, like, podcasts about gaming to see how the people are talking about us, and my voice just sounds interesting to you. Hi, Nintendo, put Conker into a Smash game.
I think they might censor him throwing poop balls, but short of that, I can see it happening.
But please, the poop balls.
So I also chose two characters who are in Smash Brothers because I feel like all the iconic characters are in Smash Brothers almost at this point. But I was thinking, like, okay, well, what if I took two sort of different period type games and mashed them up? So I was thinking, like, taking Samus from Metroid and sending her to Castlevania.
Ooh.
So
the true Metroidvania.
Yeah, the ultimate Metroidvania, right? So having her, like, have to battle, like, zombies and vampires and oversized bats and everything else.
That would be great.
Because they have made some Castlevanias, like one of the DS games, I think it is, that's actually, like, kind of set in the future.
Yeah, Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow are both, I think Aria's 2035 and Dawn is 2 years after that.
Yeah. So, I think that would be kind of neat to see that crossover. And then, yes, it becomes the ultimate Metroidvania. Like, you can just call it Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Like, just finally just use that term.
That would be the best name. That would be the most smartly named game.
Yeah.
Because the minute anyone searched Metroidvania, even looking for anything in that style, your game would come up.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the marketing on that game. It sells itself right there. All right. Well, thanks for the question, Derek. And if you want to send in a question, you can do that by emailing us at justin.young@siu.edu. And we always like getting questions. We may not be able to use all of them, though we've tried so far. But we always like getting questions or comments or feedback on the podcast. And we appreciate everyone who listens. Thank you, Alicia and Christina, for joining me this week. We will be back next week with a new episode. theoretically with Mario, unless he just decides to stay out in Arizona or wherever he
Albuquerque.
is. Albuquerque. That's
It's
right.
Albuquerque because we made all the Weird Al jokes.
I don't remember 2 days ago, let alone a week ago. But theoretically, Mario will be back if he doesn't take a wrong turn. So we'll be happy. Yes, that's what they pay me the big bucks for. But thank you for listening. Always check out SalukiGames.com for back episodes and also like our top 10 of the year list. We have a lot of cool different ones of those you can check out. And we will be back next week with a new episode. Until then, play something really cool. Play Balatro. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good week.